There is a statistic I keep coming back to. 42% of Gen Z workers say they would rather be unemployed than work a job they hate. Not underpaid, not overworked, just a job they hate. Unemployed. Think about that for a second. That is not a preference. That is a signal. Meanwhile, the average American changes jobs 12 times in their career and retires with less than $90,000 saved. 12 jobs, 40 years, $90,000. You know what $90,000 is in 2026? It is about 40 months of average living expenses. 40 months after 40 years. And people are still out here acting confused about why a 22-year-old would rather start a faceless YouTube channel or dropship phone cases than sit in a cubicle for 4 decades and end up with nothing. Is it laziness? Is it delusion? Or did an entire generation just do the math and not like the answer? We are going to explain exactly how the 9 to 5 works as a system. Why that system is breaking down in real time and why the people who figured this out earliest are quietly building leverage while everyone else is still debating whether remote work is a privilege. This is not a motivational video. I am not going to tell you to quit your job tomorrow. I am going to show you the mechanics underneath all of this because once you see them, you cannot unsee them. The metaphor I want you to hold on to throughout this whole video is the conveyor belt. Not the escalator, not the ladder, the conveyor belt. Because a ladder implies effort moves you upward. A conveyor belt implies motion without necessarily going anywhere useful. You step on, it moves, you feel like you are progressing, you stay on long enough, and you end up at the other end wondering why you did not get off sooner. That is the 9 to 5 system in 2026. A very sophisticated, very well marketed conveyor belt. And Gen Z more than any generation before them is stepping off. Some of them are stepping off smart. Some of them are stepping off into nothing. But the stepping off itself is the story. And the reason why is way more interesting than any think piece you have read about avocado toast or work-life balance. Let us start at the surface because the surface is where most people stop. And it is also where most people get the explanation completely wrong. The most common take you will hear about Gens and work goes something like this. Gens is lazy. Gens does not want to work hard. Gen Z was raised on participation trophies in social media and now they think they deserve everything without earning it. You will hear this from your uncle, from LinkedIn influencers, from op-ed writers who have not had a difficult conversation since 2008. And look, I understand why it feels like a satisfying explanation. It is simple. It assigns blame. It does not require you to examine anything about the system itself. But here is the problem with that take. It is not actually an explanation. It is a vibe. And vibes do not hold up when you look at the numbers. Gen Z works. Gen Z hustles. Gen Z has statistically more side income sources than any previous generation at the same age. They are not refusing to work. They are refusing a specific structure of work. And those are completely different things. One is a character flaw. The other is a rational economic response to changed incentives. And if you want to understand what is actually happening, you have to look at what changed. Because here is the thing, the lazy Gen Z narrative completely ignores. The 9 to 5 did not always look like this. It used to be a genuinely decent deal. And that deal got quietly renegotiated without anyone sending out a memo. Let me walk you through what the deal used to be. You take a job at a stable company. You show up reliably. In exchange, you get a salary, benefits, a pension, job security, and a predictable path forward. You do that for 30 or 40 years, and at the end, you get to retire with dignity. That was the implicit contract. And for a long time, roughly from the 1950s through the early 1990s, that contract more or less held. It was not glamorous. It was not exciting, but it was functional. You were trading your time and effort for genuine long-term stability. That is a reasonable trade. Now, let me tell you what the deal looks like today. You take a job, you get a salary. There is no pension. There is a 401k, which means you save your own money and hope the stock market is feeling cooperative when you retire. There is no job security. The average large company conducts layoffs every 2 to 3 years now. Benefits are increasingly shifted back onto the employee through higher co-pays and deductibles. The path forward is not predictable. Middle management is being compressed. AI is automating entire departments. And after all of that, if you work for 40 years and never miss a day, you will retire with approximately $90,000. Assuming you are average, and average is being generous. The conveyor belt is still running. It is just going somewhere different than it used to. This is what most people miss when they analyze Gen Z's relationship with work. The rejection is not irrational. It is a response to a changed contract. The term shifted, the expectations did not. And Gen Z was the first generation to grow up entirely inside the post-shift reality. They never experienced the version of the deal that made the deal worth taking. They only saw the current version, looked at it clearly, and said, "No, thank you." Now, to be fair, the surface explanation stops here for most people. They hear the deal changed and they either agree or disagree based on their politics, and then the conversation ends. But we are not stopping at the surface because the deal changing is the what. The interesting part is the why. And the why gets genuinely strange once you trace it back far enough. Let me give you a compressed economic history lesson, and I promise it is relevant. From the end of World War II through the 1970s, something unusual happened in the American economy. Wages grew with productivity. That sounds boring until you understand what it means. It means that when workers produced more, they got paid more. The surplus from increased productivity was distributed relatively broadly across the workforce. Not perfectly, not equally, but broadly. That is why the blue-collar worker in the 1960s could buy a house, raise 3 kids, and take a vacation on a single income. The system was distributing gains across multiple levels. Then, starting in the early 1980s, that relationship broke. Productivity kept climbing. Wages flatlined. The gains from productivity growth started flowing almost entirely to capital, meaning to the people who owned things rather than to labor, meaning the people who did things. By 2026, productivity has roughly doubled since 1980, and median real wages have grown maybe 15% over the same period. 15% of double the productivity. The rest went somewhere else. That is not a personal failure. That is a structural shift in how the system distributes output. And the 9-to-5 job sits entirely on the labor side of that equation. You do the thing, you get paid for the thing. You do not participate in the upside beyond your agreed rate, which means the conveyor belt is taking you somewhere that the data says is increasingly less valuable relative to where it used to go. Gen Z did not read the economic literature on this, but they felt it. They watched their parents work reliably for decades and arrive at retirement with almost nothing. They watched home ownership become statistically impossible in most major cities on a single income. They watched the promised path collapse in real time. And some of them, the ones we are talking about in this video, started asking a different question. Not how do I work harder inside this system, but is this system the one I should be inside at all? That question is the beginning of everything interesting. Here is where I want to introduce the first of what I call the 4 traps. Because stepping off the conveyor belt is not automatically a good decision. That is a signal reading problem. And Gen Z, having grown up with more information access than any previous generation, is extremely good at reading signals whether they can articulate why or not. This brings me to the second escalation, and it gets darker. If the first layer is the deal changed, the second layer is the deal was always designed to change this way. And this is where I want to be careful because this can sound conspiratorial, and I am not interested in conspiracy. I am interested in incentives. So, let me talk about incentives. A company's incentive is to maximize profit. Labor is a cost. Reducing labor costs increases profit. This is not evil. It is just arithmetic. If you give a company the option to automate a task for less than the cost of employing someone to do it, almost every company will eventually take that option, not because the CEO is a villain, because the CEO's job is to run the numbers and the numbers point in one direction. Now, think about what that means for the 9-to-5 over the next 20 years. AI in 2026 is not a theoretical threat to white-collar work. It is an active one. Legal research, financial analysis, content production, customer service, data entry, coding assistance, medical documentation, project management are all being compressed by tools that are simultaneously getting cheaper and better. Not eliminated, compressed. Meaning fewer people are doing the same work, producing the same or more output at a lower total cost to the organization. The conveyor belt is speeding up and narrowing at the same time, which means fewer people can fit on it. The ride is shorter, and where it drops you off is less certain than it used to be. Here is the number that should make you pause. In 2022, the average tenure at a tech company was around 2.5 years. 2.5 years. That is the length of time someone stays before leaving or being managed out or being laid off. Now, tell me how you build long-term financial security inside a system where the average engagement is 2.5 years. You cannot. You can only build it adjacent to the system through the savings and investments and skills you accumulate while you are in it, which is a completely different strategy than the one the system implies you should be following. And here is the part that nobody says out loud. Most companies know this. They know tenure is short. They plan for it. They structure compensation to front-load salary and delay equity vesting on a 4-year schedule, knowing a statistically significant portion of employees will leave before the cliff. That is not an accident. That is a design decision made by people who understand incentives. Which means if you do not understand incentives, you are playing against a team that has read the playbook and is not going to hand it to you. This is the point in the video where I want to say something clearly. If you are watching this and you are inside a 9 to 5 right now, I am not telling you to quit. What I am telling you is that your employer is running an optimization and you should be running an optimization too. And the two optimizations are not necessarily aligned. Treating your job like a partnership when a company is treating it like a resource allocation is how you end up on the wrong side of a layoff, completely blindsided. Understanding incentives is not cynical, it is just accurate. If this kind of systems level breakdown of how money actually works is useful to you, subscribe. I put out one video at a time when the analysis is actually ready, not on a content calendar. If that sounds like something you want in your feed, subscribe now. It is the logical move. Now let me tell you about the psychological shift, because we have been mostly talking about economics and structure, and the psychological layer is what actually determines whether someone successfully transitions or just crashes. There are 3 levels of understanding that I have observed in people who step off the conveyor belt. And these 3 levels basically predict outcomes better than any other variable I can identify. Level 1 is lifestyle rejection. This is the person who leaves because they hate the commute, the office politics, the feeling of wasting time. They have a legitimate emotional response to a real problem, but they have not yet built a framework for what comes next. They are running away from something, not towards something with better mechanics. Most people who quit impulsively are here. They burn out, freelancing consistently, make less money than they did in the job, and often return to employment within 18 months. Not because they failed morally, because they solved the wrong problem. Level 2 is structural understanding. This is the person who leaves because they have internalized the leverage argument. They understand that the 9 to 5 has a built-in ceiling and they want a structure with a different ratio. They are running towards something even if that something is not fully defined yet. These people succeed at higher rates because they are asking better questions. Not what do I want to feel, but what structure produces the outcome I want. That framing keeps them rational when things get hard, and things always get hard. Level 3 is asset thinking. This is where it actually gets interesting. This is the person who does not just understand leverage conceptually, but has internalized the idea that the goal is to build assets that produce value independently of their direct input. Not just a business, but a business that could theoretically run without them. Not just an investment account, but a portfolio of income-producing things. This person is not working in the traditional sense. They are building. And those two activities look the same from the outside. They both involve sitting at a desk for long hours, but they produce completely different outcomes over time. Most of the Gen Z wealth stories that are real, not the ones being performed on social media, but the ones that are actually happening, are level 3 stories. Someone who started building an asset at 20, 21, 22, treated it like an engineer treats a project, and arrived at 26 or 27 with something that produces cash flow independently. You do not hear about these people much because they are not interested in performing their success. They are busy compounding it. Let me do the comedic cutaway here because this video needs to breathe slightly. There is a specific person on LinkedIn. You know this person. They post a graphic that says, "I quit my six-figure job to follow my passion." And there are 800 likes and comments like, "So brave, and this is inspiring." And then 3 months later, they are posting about their online coaching program for $47. And there is a banner on their website that says, "Limited spots available." The passion was always the online coaching program. The six-figure job was always the villain in the story. The LinkedIn post was always the top of the funnel. Nothing about this was spontaneous. Everything about this was theater. And somehow it still works, which is a different and more depressing observation about how the internet functions. Anyway, third escalation. This one is the one that most people do not want to hear because it implicates more than just the employer-employee relationship. It implicates the entire infrastructure that was built around the 9 to F5 to keep it functioning. Think about this for a moment. The 9 to F5 as a structure does not exist in isolation. It is supported by an enormous set of institutions and industries that depend on it. Banks, consumer credit, the auto industry, the housing market, retail, insurance, healthcare. All of these industries are calibrated to the economics of steady, predictable employment income. The 30-year mortgage assumes you will have a stable job for 30 years. The car loan assumes monthly payment capacity from a salary. The credit card industry is largely built on people who overspend relative to their income because they feel stable enough to carry a balance. Every one of these industries has embedded assumptions about the workforce being mostly in traditional employment. Now watch what happens when a significant portion of a generation exits that structure. Not all of them, not even most of them, but a non-trivial growing minority. The credit products do not fit. The mortgage qualifications assume W-2 income, which is the tax form you get as an employee, not the irregular self-employment income of someone building a business. The healthcare system in the United States, and I realize this is not everyone's country, but for the American audience, the healthcare system is literally structurally tied to employment. You get insurance from your job. If you leave your job, you have to either pay full price on the market, which is extremely expensive, or you go without. That is not a coincidence. That is a design feature that creates an enormous switching cost for leaving employment. Stepping off smart is a different thing entirely from stepping off impulsively, and most of the people who are done with the 9 to 5 in 2026 are actually falling into one of these 4 traps without knowing it. Trap 1 is the content creator delusion. This is the most visible one, so let me deal with it fast. The idea that everyone can just start a YouTube channel or an Instagram or a TikTok and replace their income is statistically false. The top 1% of creators on any given platform capture around 90% of the attention. The middle 50% make almost nothing. The bottom half make literally nothing. The content economy looks like the music industry, which looks like the stock market, heavily skewed toward the top. This does not mean you should not create content. It means you should not treat it as a simple income replacement strategy, unless you have thought seriously about the math of the attention economy, and have a specific structural advantage, not just a willingness to post. Trap 2 is what I call hustle theater. This is the person who quits the 9 to 5, starts calling themselves an entrepreneur, and then works 14 hours a day at a business that has no leverage, no scalability, and no real moat. They traded a paycheck for chaos and called it freedom. If you are a freelancer trading time for money with no ability to scale without your direct presence, you did not escape the conveyor belt. You just built a smaller, more stressful, less reliable one. Trap 3 is the passive income fantasy. Passive income is real. I am not going to sit here and tell you it does not exist, but the version being sold online where you set up a digital product store or a course funnel in a weekend and then collect money forever with no ongoing input is mostly theater. Real passive income requires a large upfront capital deployment or an extremely large upfront time and skill deployment. It is the opposite of passive in the beginning. The passivity only comes after you have built something substantial. Most people quit before that. Trap 4, and this is the one nobody talks about, is the identity trap. Some people reject the 9 to 5 not because they have a better plan, but because not having a 9 to 5 has become a personality trait and a status signal in certain online communities. Leaving becomes the goal rather than what leaving is supposed to lead to. And so they leave. They drift. They do not build anything real. And 2 years later they are broke and confused. The rejection of the system was real. The replacement plan was not. Now I am not saying this to be discouraging. I am saying it because understanding the traps is how you avoid them. The question is not whether to step off the conveyor belt. The question is what you are stepping onto and whether that thing has better mechanics than what you just left. And here is where it gets interesting, because the Gen Z workers who are actually winning right now, not the ones posting about it, the ones actually winning are not making a lifestyle choice. They are making a leverage choice, and those are completely different decisions. Let me explain what I mean by leverage, because I think this word gets used incorrectly a lot. Leverage is not working smart instead of working hard. That is a vague, useless phrase. Leverage is a structural condition where one unit of your input produces more than one unit of output. That is it. One unit in more than one unit out. The reason a 9 to 5 is structurally limiting is not because the work is hard or the hours are long. It is because the ratio is essentially fixed at 1:1. You show up, you get paid. You stop showing up, you stop getting paid. The ceiling is your time multiplied by your rate. And both of those things have hard limits. The reason certain alternative structures win over time is not because they are more comfortable or more aligned with your values or whatever. It is because the ratio is different. A software product you built once can sell 1,000 times. A piece of content can reach 10 million people with no additional input from you. A business with systems and employees produces output while you sleep. The input to output ratio is not 1:1. It is something else. And over a long enough time horizon, that difference compounds into completely different outcomes. This is what Gen Z, or at least a fraction of Gen Z that is doing this right, has internalized. Not consciously, not in those terms, but as a felt understanding. They watched the 1:1 ratio play out for their parents, and they are looking for better ratios. And in 2026, the infrastructure for finding better ratios is more accessible than at any point in human history. That is not hype. That is just accurate. The barriers to building a software product, to reaching an audience, to selling something online, to structuring a small business are genuinely lower than they have ever been. Not low, but lower. And that matters when we are talking about who can realistically step off the conveyor belt and build something functional on the other side. Let me do a concrete math example here, because this is where most people's intuition breaks down. Imagine two 23-year-olds. Same starting point. Call them Jordan and Alex. Jordan takes a traditional path. Gets a job paying $60,000 a year. Gets modest raises by 30. Earns $80,000 a year. Saves around 15%. Invests in index funds. Decent outcome by most historical standards. Alex spends 2 years building a SaaS product, which stands for Software as a Service, meaning a subscription software tool, earns almost nothing during those 2 years. By year 2, the product generates $5,000 a month. By year 4, $10,000. By year 5, through a combination of product growth and one strategic partnership, it is generating $25,000 a month in revenue with about a $12,000 net. That is $144,000 a year. But here is the thing. That revenue continues while Alex sleeps. Continues while Alex is on vacation. Continues if Alex gets sick. Alex then sells the business at a 3 times annual revenue multiple. At $25,000 a month in revenue. That is a $900,000 exit at 28 years old. Now, I am not saying everyone can do this. Most people who try fail. But here is the structural point. The upside of the second path is not bounded by the same ceiling. Jordan is trading time for money at a roughly fixed rate with incremental growth. Alex is building an asset that has a ratio better than 1:1 and then liquidating that asset. These are fundamentally different games, and once you understand they are different games, the Gen Z preference for the second game stops looking irrational and starts looking like basic incentive following. You think the problem is Gen Z's work ethic. But actually the problem is that a generation grew up watching the one-tune game and looked at the scoreboard and decided they wanted to play something else. There is a thing I want to pause on here, a small thing, but it matters. The narrative around Gen Z and work is almost always framed as a cultural story. They value work-life balance. They want meaning. They need flexibility. And sure, those things are real preferences. But I think framing it as a cultural story unnells what is actually happening, because underneath the culture is a math problem. And the math problem existed before the culture caught up to it. Let me put it differently. If you could show me a version of the 9-to-5 where working 40 years reliably produced genuine wealth, where the deal was as good as it was in 1965, where the conveyor belt actually took you somewhere valuable, I think a lot of Gen Z would take it. Not all of them, but a lot. The rebellion is not primarily aesthetic. It is primarily economic. The aesthetics are downstream of the math. Here is a short story. Not real, but close enough to real that it might as well be. There is a guy, 21 years old, studying finance, doing everything right, internship at a mid-size firm, good grades, clear path. His uncle, who had worked at the same company for 32 years, came to his graduation. He told this guy the plan. Show up, put your head down, make yourself indispensable, wait your turn. And the 21-year-old looked at his uncle and thought, 32 years, same company, and he is celebrating my graduation in a rented suit and driving a 12-year-old car. He did not say anything. He just smiled. But that moment was the crack in the foundation. Not because of the suit, not because of the car, because of the 32 years, because the math did not add up. And once he saw that the math did not add up, no amount of HR presentation about company culture and career ladders could uncrack it. That is not a Gen Z problem. This is the part where I want to be very precise. I am not saying there is a room full of people who sat down and designed a system to trap workers. That is not how systems work. Systems emerge from the accumulation of individual incentive-driven decisions. The bank gave mortgages based on W-2 income because W-2 income was historically the reliable indicator of repayment. The healthcare system attached to employment because it was a convenient delivery mechanism. Nobody planned it to be a trap. It just functions like one for the people who are trying to exit. And Gen Z is the first generation to run into this trap at scale. Because Gen Z is the first generation where exiting traditional employment is practically feasible for a large enough number of people to constitute a trend. When the cost of starting a business was high, almost nobody tried. When the cost dropped, more people tried. And now those people are discovering that the infrastructure around them was not built for them. And they are navigating around it in real time. This produces a specific pattern that I think is underappreciated. The Gen Z workers who are building alternative income streams are not just building new income. They are building new financial infrastructure at a personal level, their own insurance solutions, their own retirement structures through self-employed retirement accounts and direct investment, their own credit relationships, often avoiding debt entirely because they cannot access it on the same terms a salaried employee can. This is not idealistic. This is adaptive. They are patching the missing pieces in real time. The conveyor belt was not just a job. It was an entire life infrastructure. And the people stepping off have to build infrastructure and income simultaneously. That is harder. It is more complex. It requires more sophistication. And the ones who do it right end up with something the conveyor belt could never give them, which is the actual ownership of their own financial life. Let me give you the mini case study now. I want to make this concrete and real. Imagine someone, call her Maya, 24 years old in 2023, not a prodigy, not from money, studied marketing at a second-tier university, gets a job at a mid-size marketing agency, salary of $52,000 a year. She is good at her job, but she notices something early. The clients they are serving, mostly medium-sized e-commerce brands, are paying the agency around $8,000 to $12,000 a month for services Maya is largely executing herself. The agency is billing $12,000. Maya is getting paid around $4,300 a month before tax. She does the math. She is not supposed to do the math. Nobody tells employees to do the math, but she does it. After 18 months at the agency, she takes one client on the side, a small brand that cannot afford agency rates. She charges them $3,500 a month. She does the work in about 10 hours a week. Her hourly rate on that client is higher than her effective hourly rate at the agency. Not dramatically, but notably. She runs this for 6 months without quitting her job. At month 6, she has another side client. Now she is earning $7,000 a month in side income while still earning her salary. Her total household income is now north of $100,000 for the first time. But more importantly, she notices something. Her side clients are paying her more consistently than her job feels stable. Her job has had one round of layoffs. She survived. But the experience recalibrated something. It's month 10. She has 3 side clients that are combined $12,000 a month. She gives notice. Her employer is surprised she is not. By the end of her first full year of self-employment, she has 4 clients at a combined $18,000 a month in revenue with about $12,000 in net income after taxes and expenses, $144,000 a year. At 26, with no boss, with the ability to work from anywhere, with no exposure to her previous employer's layoff cycle. Now, here is the important part. Maya did not do anything exotic. She did not build an app. She did not go viral. She used a skill she already had inside an industry she already understood and changed the structure of how she delivered it. The skill did not change. The leverage changed. She removed the middleman. She went from being a resource inside someone else's business to being a business herself. The result is not just more money. It is a different ratio. Her input now scales differently. She can take on a larger client. She can raise rates. She can eventually hire someone below her and take a cut of their output. The ceiling lifted, not because she worked harder, because she changed the structure. This is the story of a lot of the Gen Z workers who are actually making this work. It is not as dramatic as the TikTok version. It is not passive income in 3 easy steps. It is structured, deliberate, and built on top of a real skill developed inside the system before leaving it. Which brings me to a point I want to make explicitly. The people who are best positioned to step off the conveyor belt are paradoxically the people who first stepped on it and learned something while they were on it. The worst version of the Gen Z rebellion is the kid at 19 who has never built anything, never delivered value to anyone, and decides the 9 to 5 is beneath them before they have anything to replace it with. That is not strategic. That is just refusal. And refusal without a plan is not a plan. The best version is the person who uses the Neneto 5 as a training ground, an income floor, a network source and a skill accelerator, and simultaneously builds the thing they are going to transition into. They use the system they extract from it, and then they exit when the math says to exit, not when the emotion says to exit. That is the difference between trap 1 from earlier, which is lifestyle rejection, and level 2 and 3, which is structural and asset thinking. The emotion is the same. The person at all 3 levels might feel the same frustration, the same desire for autonomy, the same sense that the deal is bad, but only 2 of the 3 levels produce outcomes. Here is the second comedic cutaway. Someone in the comments of every video like this will write, "That's easy to say when you're already a millionaire." And this is funny to me because the implicit argument is that financial advice is only valid if the person giving it started with nothing and also never accumulated anything. Which means the ideal financial advisor is simultaneously experienced and broke, which is a very strange standard to hold, like going to a doctor who has never successfully treated a patient for the vibes, I suppose. Okay, fourth escalation, and this is the one that I think is most counterintuitive, so follow me carefully. Everything we have talked about so far has framed the Gen Z exit from the 9 to 5 as a response to something the system did. The deal changed, the incentive shifted, the infrastructure calcified. All of that is true, but the fourth layer is not about what the system did. It is about what the system is preparing to do next. Because here is the thing, the people who run the system are not stupid. They can read the same economic data everyone else can read. They know tenure is dropping. They know a generation is rejecting traditional employment. They know AI is compressing the workforce and they are adapting. They are building the next conveyor belt. And I want you to be able to see it before you step onto it. The new conveyor belt has a different name. It goes by several. The gig economy, the creator economy, the freelance revolution, the passion economy. These are not the same thing, but they share a structural similarity that is worth examining. In each of them, the individual bears more risk, more variability, more cost, while the platform or marketplace or aggregator that sits above them captures a reliable percentage of value with very little corresponding risk. Think about the ride-share driver. They own the car. They pay the insurance. They absorb the cost of wear and maintenance. They bear the risk of a bad night, slow demand, a cancelled ride. The platform takes 15 to 30% of every transaction and does not own the car, does not pay the insurance, and does not have a bad night because its aggregate demand is stable, even when individual driver income varies wildly. The driver has more autonomy than a salaried employee. They set their own hours. They have flexibility, but the economic structure is not meaningfully different from being an employee in terms of who captures the upside. Is arguably worse because at least an employee gets benefits. Now, scale that up. The creator on YouTube earns money through AdSense, which means YouTube takes a roughly 45% cut of all advertising revenue generated by the content. The Etsy seller pays listing fees, transaction fees, payment processing fees, and advertising costs that together can consume 20 to 30% of revenue before a cent of profit is calculated. The Amazon seller pays storage fees, fulfillment fees, referral fees, and potentially advertising costs that make Amazon the most profitable entity in the transaction. In every one of these structures, the platform has recreated the essential architecture of employment where the person doing the work takes home a negotiated portion of the value they generate and the platform takes the rest except without any of the benefits or stability that traditional employment offered. This is the next conveyor belt. It looks like freedom. It is structured like a franchise where someone else owns the real estate. The people stepping off the old belt who are not thinking carefully enough about structure are stepping directly onto this one without realizing it. I want to be precise again because I do not want to overstate this. The creator economy and the gig economy and the freelance market are not uniformly bad. There are real advantages. Flexibility is real. Upside potential is real. The lack of a geographic constraint is real. But the conveyor belt metaphor holds because if you are on one of these platforms and the platform changes its algorithm or its fee structure or its terms of service, you find out very quickly that you are not as free as you thought. You are free within the parameters the platform sets. And the platform sets the parameters based on its interests, not yours. Which is exactly how an employer works. The people who are actually escaping the conveyor belt, not just changing belts, are the ones who own the asset rather than operating on a platform. Your own audience that you own the relationship with. Not that an algorithm delivers you. Your own product that lives on your own infrastructure, not a marketplace that can delist you. Your own client relationships that are with you personally, not with a platform that could introduce a competitor tomorrow. Ownership of the relationship, the asset, or the infrastructure is what separates actual leverage from the illusion of it. And this is the thing about Gen Z that I find genuinely interesting. The most sophisticated fraction of them has figured this out faster than any previous generation because they grew up watching the platforms. They watched the YouTube algorithm change in 2019 and kill channels that had hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They watched TikTok suppress content for reasons nobody could fully explain. They watched Amazon sellers get delisted overnight. They have seen the platform rug pull happen to enough people that a significant number of them have internalized the lesson. They are not just building on platforms. They are using platforms as distribution while building owned assets underneath. Email lists, memberships, direct payment relationships, software, things that do not depend on an algorithm continuing to find them useful. That is level 3 asset thinking applied at a generation scale. And it is genuinely new. Not because the strategy is new, but because the tools to execute it at age 20 with limited capital have never been more accessible. Let me come back to where we started because I want to close the loop. The original question was, why is GenZ done with the Neneto 5 forever? And the answer is not because they are lazy, and the answer is not because they want work-life balance. And the answer is not because they grew up with phones. The answer, when you trace it all the way through, is this. The 9 to 5 was a deal. The deal offered security, stability, and a predictable path to a modest but dignified retirement. The deal changed. The returns dropped. The security disappeared. The path became non-linear and sometimes non-existent. And at the same time that the deal was getting worse, the alternatives became accessible in a way they had never been before. You do not need to be a genius or wealthy to build a software product in 2026. You do not need connections to build an audience. You do not need office space to run a service business. The barriers dropped exactly as the deal deteriorated. And a generation that had access to all the information about both the deteriorating deal and the accessible alternatives looked at the math and made a rational choice. The ones who are making it work are not doing it through passion or rebellion or vibes. They are doing it through structural clarity. They understand leverage. They understand that building an asset is different from performing labor. They understand that platforms are not freedom and that ownership is not optional. It is the whole game. They use the system when the system is useful, and they exit when the math says to exit. The ones who are not making it work are falling into one of the 4 traps. Lifestyle rejection without a plan. Hustle theater with no leverage. The passive income fantasy without the upfront build, or the identity trap where not having a job became the goal rather than the means. So, here are the 3 practical things I want you to take from this video. Not generic, specific. First, audit your ratio. Think about your current income source, whatever it is, and identify the honest input to output ratio. If you work more, do you earn proportionally more? If you stop working, does the income stop? If both of those are yes, you are in a one-tune structure and you have no leverage. That is not automatically a reason to quit, but it is a fact worth knowing because you cannot improve a ratio you have not measured. Second, use the system while building outside it. The most reliable pattern among the GenZ workers who are actually successfully transitioning is not that they quit first and built second. It is that they built while employed, reduced financial risk by maintaining income during the build phase, and exited when the alternative was generating enough that the exit math made sense. If you are employed right now and you want to build something, the employment is not the enemy, it is the runway. Use it deliberately. Third, ask the ownership question before you commit to any new structure. If you are considering going freelance or selling on a marketplace or building a following on a platform, ask yourself what you own in that structure. But what is yours if the platform disappears tomorrow? If the answer is nothing, you have not escaped the conveyor belt. You have just changed belts. The goal is to build something where the answer to what do I own is actually substantial. An audience you have direct contact with. A product on your own infrastructure. A client relationship that is personal to you. Building that direction, even if it is slower, the slower path with ownership almost always beats the faster path without it. The conveyor belt is running. It always will be. Some people should stay on it, extract from it, and use it as a vehicle towards something else. Some people are ready to step off now. But the ones who step off smart are not following their passion or chasing freedom in the abstract. They are reading the mechanics of the machine, finding where the ratio is better, and moving deliberately in that direction. That is the actual story. Everything else is aesthetics. If you made it to the end of a video this long, you are probably the kind of person who finds this useful. Subscribe.